What are you talking about? Are you a CEO? Are you a billionaire? You mean to tell me that, let's say America is China, okay? Elon Musk, greatly reliant on state subsidies, becomes a billionaire, comes out against taxes. Elon Musk gets disappeared overnight, comes back to sing the praises of taxes and government regulation. You don't want that here? What are you talking about? You're not a billionaire. You're not a fucking CEO. Why would you? Why? Holy, that is so crazy.
Well, I've got to tell you, Eunice, I listened to you all morning, and you've been incredibly spot on all these things. But when I listen to the rhetoric from China, this is 1968, 72 rhetoric. This is the kind of rhetoric that just says there's never going to be a meeting. Is there a way to have a Nixon to China moment? Because as far as I'm concerned, this is just...
Oh, Jesus Christ. Donald Trump wishes he had fucking Maoist vision like Nixon did, okay? He wishes. China threatened us with this move in 2019. The DOD has been musing on doing something about it since 2010, but hasn't. Great job not preparing for anything. I knew it was coming, but it's still bad. China's officially halted shipments of several rare earth minerals to the U.S., specifically used as inputs for cars, semiconductors, and aerospace companies. It is because they have an entire monopoly on the refinement process of all of these rare earth minerals. So what the fuck were you thinking? Okay. The question remains, what were you thinking? And the American government's like, this shows how bad faith the Chinese government is. It's like, no, they're just showing you that you can't fuck around like this. They didn't do this for Taiwan. They didn't do this for Hong Kong. They didn't do this for anything. They just literally, you've been gearing up for war against a country that you rely on for your defense contractors. It's so stupid. This is why I kept saying over and over again for the past couple of years, like, what an idiotic notion that we would go to war with China. There's never been a history. There's never been a Cold War with a nation state that we are so directly connected to, that our manufacturing entirely relies on. It's so dumb. Trade in that regard, unironically, is not dissimilar to nukes. If anything, it's even more significant, more impactful than nukes. The two nations that have nukes will never go into hot battle with one another, right? Like the idea that nuclear proliferation has brought about a new age of peace around the world, except, you know, we now fight through proxy wars with countries that don't have nukes and they get fucked over in the process. But that's besides the point. I'm not in favor of nuclear proliferation at all. Obviously, denuclearization should be the goal here. But trade, on the other hand, is also a very effective way to, it's a very effective way to curb back on our appetite for death and destruction. America's so fucking stupid, though, that they don't give a shit. It makes no sense. It's so dumb. It's so fucking dumb. The idea that you're just going to keep posturing this way and then try to nuke global trade in this way and then not expect any repercussions whatsoever for this when you don't hold the cards. Okay? Ironically enough, Xi Jinping should call up Donald Trump and be like, you don't hold the cards, Donald. You don't hold any of the cards, Donald. And yeah, I know Matt Stoller is an anti-China hawk. I know. Many Americans are. No one wants to examine why China got to the point that it got to. China was not supposed to develop. It was supposed to be kept poor. It was supposed to be a kleptocracy led by a bunch of wealthy, Western-backed oligarchs, not dissimilar to Russia. That's what was supposed to happen. China was not supposed to develop and become a competitive manufacturing power that actually eats away at America's market share. Okay? That's the problem. The problem is China actually did the thing that the World Trade Organization constantly claims is happening to the global south, which is that these kinds of free trade agreements are actually incredibly beneficial for the countries that are on the receiving end. The countries that woke leftists will say are being exploited for our affordable treats. Okay? The reason why we're on the fuck China tip for the past multiple decades at this point is because they were able to actually take all of the foreign capital and then distribute it evenly. Okay? And before people say, Hasan, China has billionaires. I know, dude. I know they do. And you know what happens to those billionaires? Sometimes when the Chinese government doesn't like what they have to say about banking regulation, for example, Jack Ma happens. Okay? They come out, they deliver a speech, they talk about banking regulations being outdated in China, and then they disappear. They disappear. They're gone for a little bit. They go to the rural countryside for a little bit, only to return and be like, Mr. Philanthropy. I'm talking about Jack Ma, okay? So it's not a country that runs in the same ways that the United States of America and Western countries run. What is this? CI confirms that when it scanned direct or reckless phone for signal gate messages, they were gone. Nice. Don't particularly want that happening here. Wait, what? What do you mean you don't? What are you talking about? Are you a CEO? Are you a billionaire? You mean to tell me that, let's say America is China, okay? Elon Musk, greatly reliant on state subsidies, becomes a billionaire, comes out against taxes. Elon Musk gets disappeared overnight, comes back to sing the praises of taxes and government regulation. You don't want that here? What are you talking about? You're not a billionaire. You're not a fucking CEO. Why would you look at the system that they have designed over there and be like, well, one day I could be a billionaire, and when I do, I want to be able to control the government? Is that what you're saying? Nope, just a lib that wants billionaires to pay more? Yeah, okay. Well, good luck with that. Good luck. Good luck. It hasn't happened yet. And I don't think it'll ever happen. Why would it happen? In China, the billionaires and corporations are controlled by the government. In America, the billionaires and the corporations control the government. That's the difference. It's far from perfect, okay, the Chinese style, but I think they're demonstrably better than the way that we're doing business. They're so much better. They're so much better in terms of doing business that we consider it cheating. We literally consider what China is doing cheating. Everybody has state subsidies, but China has extra subsidies. And the extra subsidies, as a matter of fact, is considered cheating because they don't have the same profit-centered, they don't have the same profit interest that capitalist corporations do. We give subsidies to our corporations. They somehow turn back into, they somehow generate all that wealth and then turn it back into stock buybacks. They don't do that. If you were to do that, you'd go to fucking prison. There's never an instance where power concedes without demand and never without any sort of serious mechanism to claw back said power. It's just not going to happen. Say that again about corporations controlling the government with this meme on screen. Yeah. What is this good TikTok video on it?
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't
Bro, he looks too Chinese for me to believe him.
need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs ship your job to China. Not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap laborers. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crashed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty.
Yes, it's what you do with the money that matters. Why do we not have the same level of smoke for India? Why don't we have the same smoke for any of the other nations that are industrializing as well, that we use as a manufacturing hub?
Fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do? They bought yachts, private jets, mansions with golf course driveways. They manipulate the market, dodge tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you You get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare cost, cheap dopamine, debt, and flagged wave property made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs fit your lies while they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made.
You want to know something really funny about this? If America had a social democratic process, for example, and more significant controls over capital accumulation and distribution of profits in general, and that while our manufacturing base was wiped out, moved overseas to China, we actually focused on a collaborative relationship with China as it was able to develop itself, while simultaneously, instead of fucking, blowing up the rest of the fucking planet, instead of doing all that, we actually focused on developing ourselves and creating a system where it didn't matter where you actually worked, right? It didn't matter if you were a barista or a waiter, part of the service sector or anything like that. You still had the opportunity to make an honest living, and the markets were stable. The housing market wasn't out of fucking control or anything like that. We wouldn't even have this kind of problem. We would still have capitalism. We would still have capital owners. We would still have billionaires and millionaires as well. Okay. But there wouldn't be this level of instability. There wouldn't be appetite for change. You would not have had a Donald Trump style figure win. The irony is that the endless greed is a suicidal ambition. The endless greed in this regard is the reason why we're in the position that we're in. It's also impossible to maintain social democracy of that sort. Obviously, look to Europe. No matter what, when there is this level of wealth and income inequality and people that stand to gain more, they will always try to create new profit sectors. The radicalization of normies from contact with regular Chinese people is accelerating. China's soft power is growing. Oh, for sure.
In the Chinese internet.
Oh, this is this is a fucking old video. I really like it though.
I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up.
That's ahistorical though. Capitalism never develops like that. If China maintains capitalism for long enough, it too will eventually be consumed by capital. Yes. I know. I know that. The only difference in this regard is that there's still a lot of power and a lot of control in the hands of the party that still abides by the wishes of the public and works to move in the direction of uplifting the public. And it becomes hard at times, and yet they still try to fix these issues. We don't have that interest at all. We do not. Capitalism has never, ever in a million years, ever put the interest of the people. If people's lives and living conditions improve, that's secondary. That just happens as a byproduct of technological expansion and things like that. It's never the main reason. It's never the main purpose. There is no singular life-changing technological improvement that's happened under capitalism through exclusively the private sector, where the benefits were not the profit motive or profit incentive was not the main purpose here, but instead was to genuinely uplift people's lives. There are examples of medical innovation or even innovations such as the internet, right? And those things are still a byproduct of heavily funded public, like things that happen as a direct consequence of publicly funded research. He says segue. Yeah.
You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution. They rob you blind.
This is why I fucking say your enemy is not China, it's global capital. Just like how the Sacklers got your people hooked on opiates and your government slapped them on the wrist, now you all blame China for your addictions. You are 5% of the planet but consume 80% of all manufactured opioids, and somehow it's our fault. Netizens cooking.
You think you don't have master? Then why you are being a financial slave? The student loan, all the interest of your loan is crazy. It's illegal in China. You think you don't have master?
Yeah. I was thinking about the Sackler thing as well. Like Trump keeps talking about fentanyl and how it's like the Chinese that brought about fentanyl. And it's like, I didn't know the Sacklers were fucking Chinese, dog. I had no idea. I did not realize that the Sackler family was fucking Chinese, dude.
Extraordinary boom was the very opposite.
The U.S.-China trade war makes much more sense and is so much funnier if you've seen this Adam Curtis banger.
For the extraordinary boom was the very opposite. It happened because of a giant exercise of political power by an elite thousands of miles away on the other side of the world. The Asian countries, led by China, had decided that never again would they put themselves at the mercy of America and its financial elites, as had happened 2 years before. So the Chinese Politburo created a system to manage America. They deliberately held their currency's exchange rate at a low level. This meant that their exports were cheap, and Chinese goods flooded into America. And to pay for them, American dollars flooded into China. But instead of spending the money on their population, the Chinese leaders immediately lent the money back to America by buying government bonds. It was a perfect system of cheap goods and cheap money flowing into America, all controlled by the Chinese Politburo. And it was this that created the stability.
Become irreplaceable. This, I think, is one of the biggest differences between, if Israel looked to apartheid South Africa and learned the lessons of what not to do and become an impossible to shake force in American politics at the domestic level, so that your allegiance with the global hegemonic superpower never goes away, and you can continue doing death and destruction, genocide, apartheid, all that good stuff. China looked to the USSR and learned from the mistakes of the USSR and became a unavoidable, unshakable part of the global system. They became an irreplaceable force of manufacturing for American interests.
From it came an orgy of lending by the banks to the poorest and least creditworthy borrowers in the United States. It was a mirror image of what the West had done in East Asia in the 1990s. And just like that...
Yeah, I don't understand. Why is it that... wait, I'm confused why they bought bonds to put it back into America instead of investing in their own country. In the interim, they spent all of the dollars to buy back American debt. Japan also is still, I think, the single largest foreign debt owner of American debt. This is a way to ensure stability.
Then, out of it came a vast property bubble.
It keeps their currency low as opposed to the American dollar. That's one part of it. But then also, you become a debt holder of American debt, and makes it harder for America to undermine your position.
It is as if over $1 trillion has been recycled, wrote one economist, to a third world developing economy that exists within America's own borders.
Yeah, the Soviet Union was desperate for foreign currency as they needed to buy foreign goods, but on the other hand, they couldn't trade with the U.S. to get dollars like China can.
The Chinese money had led America into a dream world. But the reason that so few bankers and politicians questioned it was because of their faith in computers. They were convinced that it was the computer for the...
I don't think this is the whole... Another very relevant banger for all washed over by machines of loving grace.
There was something wrong. And in 1996, Greenspan made a speech that warned that the market might be overvalued, that a dangerous speculative bubble was being created.
Early December of 1996, Alan Greenspan warned that the U.S. stock market may be in a period of irrational exuberance And you would have thought the world had come to an end. The politicians attacked him from the left, from the right. Main Street was upset with him. Wall Street was upset with him. And at that point, there was a very unfortunate turn of events because he knuckled under to political pressure. He changed his mind.
Greenspan decided he was wrong, that the computers were increasing productivity in ways that were so new his data couldn't see it. And he went to see President Clinton to tell him the good news. It really was a new economy. Greenspan described it to Clinton as like discovering a new planet. The boom continued, and Time magazine described how a sense of lethargy and quietness came over the White House. It was as if the president didn't have anything to do.
Right now, you're on the verge of when I was a little boy. We kept thinking, when are they going to bomb us? I mean, that was the same rhetoric. Well, when are they going to launch their nuclear weapons? I mean, that's why we used to live in fear. That's why we had cubby holes. That's why we used to put our heads in a cubby hole, because
This guy's a trot, by the way.
Chinese were going to bomb us if the Russians didn't bomb us. This is the same sound.
Jim Cramer, Trotsky believed that the workers should own the means of production. Not a bad idea. Hashtag Leon Trotsky. Hashtag you called it. It's not a joke. This is why Jim Cramer is Alex Press's favorite. I keep Mao's pick to remind me of who the Chinese can be, and Lenin's because people think I am related to him. Yeah.
美方有关人士的言论充满了意识形态偏见和冷战思维，是彻头彻尾的谎言和谬论。是谁将拉美和加勒比视为后院，大搞新门罗主义？是谁对拉美和加勒比国家的内政
Who keeps pointing fingers at domestic affairs of these countries?
是谁高举关税的
Who's
大
been
棒
coercing them with tariff
胁迫
threats?
拉美和加勒比国家？是谁在全球
Who's engaged in massive global surveillance?
是谁军事基地
Who's got military bases all over the Western Hemisphere?
是谁放任轻小武
Who's
器
letting small arms and light weapons and ammunition flow into Latin America and the Caribbean as a zone of peace?
世人看得很清楚。
The world knows full well the answers to these questions.
中拉合作是南南合作，
China's cooperation with Latin America.
只有相互
Oops, sorry.
支持，没有地缘算计。合作
China's
是
cooperation with Latin American and Caribbean countries is South-South cooperation.
只有相互支持。
It is always aimed at giving each other support and never driven by geopolitical
中方
calculations.
同拉美和加勒比国
China
家
is
交往，
committed to equality and
始
mutual
终
benefit
秉
in
持
engaging in these
平
countries
等相
and
待、互利共赢的原则，
never seeks sphere of influence or targets any third party.
也不针对任何第三方。美方反复
The U.S. keeps vilifying China and peddling the so-called China threat in order to cook up
中国威胁论，不过是想以之为借
a
口，
pretext to justify their action to control countries in this region, yet they will never
注定
succeed.
不会得逞。
God damn, dude. Holy shit.